Welcome back to Design to Win podcast. I am so glad that you're here with me today. As we step into 2026, I want to be very intentional about what we talk about on the podcast this year, because everything I do, everything I teach, everything I create, it really comes back to only one thing: identity and the value we believe that we have. Not the value that the world assigns us, not the value systems or schools or society measure us by, but the value God placed inside of us before anyone ever had an opinion about us. And today I want to talk about something that has been sitting pretty heavy with me and wholly on my heart. It's the difference between truth and what I'm calling lie-dentity. I heard Myron Golden say this in a podcast I listened of his this week, and it just really stuck with me. The word lie-dentity. It means false identity, basically. And when I was listening to Myron Golden, he also said something with that. He said, we really need to understand who we are and whose we are. That sounded kind of simple, but it's actually one of the greatest battles I think that we all face. Because every single one of us lives with a voice in our head that didn't originate from God. Because we had voices from teachers and parents, coaches and doctors, school systems, society, and even our own past failures that have spoken to us and spoken into our lives over time. And those voices have begun to they've shaped the narrative in our life, a story about who we are. And the question is, whose voice are we believing? Have you ever asked yourself that? Are we believing God's truth about us or the labels others have placed on us? Here's what I mean when we talk about lie-dentity. A lie-dentity is an identity of ourselves that is built on labels that are limiting and systems that have misunderstood us, comparisons that have crushed us, and narratives that never came from God. I have seen this show up, especially in students I've had and adults I've worked with that have learning differences, and they have just struggled with learning and fitting into that box in the school system. And partly the reason it shows up in them is because our school systems are designed for efficiency and not individuality. That is so true. So when someone doesn't fit neatly into the little box, the system says, well, you don't fit. You're not good enough. It says you're behind. You're struggling. You're a deficit. You need to catch up. You don't learn the right way. They don't try to find our gifts and our talents. So what happens over time when you hear those things? You're behind, you're struggling, you're a deficit, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. Over time, that message becomes internalized in us, not just as information that we're hearing, but it becomes the identity of who we are and how we value ourselves. You don't just think to yourself, oh, well, I learned different. You start to believe the narrative that something's wrong with me, but that isn't the truth. That is the lie-dentity of it all. I love that word. Here is the biggest part that breaks my heart and fuels the ministry that I have. When someone believes the wrong story about who they are, they just stop trying. they stop doing anything. They start procrastinating. And it's not because they're lazy and they can't do it. It's because they're just afraid. They're afraid to continue and continue hearing all these narratives. They avoid starting because failure just seems an inevitable thing to them. They shrink their dreams before anyone has a chance to say, look at what you've done. And what that becomes and what it looks like is a lack of motivation. It comes out as anxiety in people. That's why we have so much anxiety in our kids today. It comes out as perfectionism in some people, and in some people it comes out as procrastination. And that doesn't mean that they're lazy or any of those things. It just means that they have an identity confusion in them. This is what they think. They think, if I believe I'm incapable, then why should I even start? If I believe that I'm going to fail, then why would I even try? And if I believe that I don't measure up, then why would I even show up? This is why identity always comes before strategy. I hope there's some teachers out there that are listening to me. God's narrative is totally different. God does not define us by the test scores that we have, our processing speed and getting things done, our reading level, our productivity, or the performance that we have. But God does define us by our purpose, the design that He gave us, the calling in us. He defines us by our character and our sonship and daughtership. You know, before you ever did anything, before you ever struggled with something, and before you were ever labeled by someone else, God said these things about you. He said, you were created fearfully and wonderfully made, that you were chosen, you were intentional, and you were equipped and qualified. He said all those things about you, and He still says those things about you. The world says this to us and asks us this. What can you produce? That's what the world says to us. But God says, who did I create you to be? And when those two narratives collide, then we have to think about what we're going to believe and what we're not going to believe. This is exactly why I have really thought about this a lot, and I created a challenge to start the new year off with. Not a course or anything like that. It's not another productivity program, and it's not another New Year's resolution. It's not a checklist, and it's not something that's going to fix you, but I'm calling it a reset. A reset for how you see yourself, a reset for how you approach your focus and procrastination and your purpose. A reset for breaking agreement with the lies that you've been carrying around for years. Because you don't overcome procrastination by trying harder. You overcome it by seeing your true identity and seeing yourself differently. That's how you overcome procrastination. You don't build confidence in yourself by forcing discipline in yourself. You build it by aligning yourself with the truth and who God says that you are and what you're capable of. So what this challenge is really about is rewriting your internal narrative, focusing on that, understanding how you were designed to function, and replacing pressure with your purpose. Just moving you forward from your identity and not insecurity that you have. If you have ever felt boxed in, misunderstood, overlooked, behind, or like you had more inside of you, but you didn't know how to access it? Believe me, I've been there. I want you to hear me and hear me clearly, okay? You are not late. You're not behind. You're not less than. You're not enough. You're not a problem to be solved. You are a person with a God-given design that may not fit into broken systems, but fits perfectly into God's plan for you. And the moment that you stop agreeing with the lie-dentity, everything will begin to shift. Trust me, it will. So as I close this episode today, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to have a new version of yourself. What you need is a clearer vision of who God already says you are. Stop asking this question, what is wrong with me? And start asking yourself, what did God place inside of me? Who did He create me to be? Stop measuring yourself by the voices that never knew what your calling is, and start aligning them with the one who formed the purpose inside of you, who created you. This year in 2026, it's not to me about striving and striving and striving. What it's about is standing in the truth finally. So as you step into this challenge and into the days ahead of the new year, remember this and write this down if you want. You are designed to win when you live from God's identity, not the world's labels. I'll say it again. You are designed to win when you live from God's identity and not the world's labels. I will see you in this challenge, and until next time, keep walking out in truth, purpose, and victory. Love y'all.